Hey, welcome everyone to Lego Chapel. We're going to do the story of Joseph and Joseph forgives his brothers. The story is Joseph forgives his brothers. So it starts out with Joseph.
No.
This is Joseph. Now, when we meet him in our story, he is a big, important official in Egypt. He is in charge of a lot of supplies and food and helping people in a very important position in Egypt. One day, his brothers, there's a famine in his land, and his brothers come to Egypt to get help, and Joseph helps them. And here he is helping them. You see how Joseph is helping all his brothers. Now he has 11 brothers, but here we have 10 of his brothers because one of his brothers is still in Egypt. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now 2 of his brothers, what are they?
Mountain trolls.
Mountain trolls. 2 of his brothers. They're really big. Get a little scary. Now Joseph meets with his brothers and he helps them. He gives them food and they're so thankful. And they take the food back to their father.
But the brothers get them in the hole.
Well, we're coming to that. Well, one day when Joseph's father dies, the brothers talk to each other and they say...
But he doesn't get them food.
He does, well, okay. The brothers say, you know what? What if, now that our father's dead, what if Joseph comes and wants to hurt us? And he says, and what if Joseph wants revenge now that our father has died? And the brothers get very scared. And
they don't get scared.
And so they come to Joseph and say...
They don't get scared.
Okay, well, it says in the Bible. Now, this story comes from the Bible. Genesis chapter 50.
Don't know.
The first book of the Bible is Genesis.
Papa,
And
you
the
don't
book of-
know.
Well, I do know because it's a story in the Bible. And so they go to Joseph
Papa,
and
you
say,
still don't know.
Joseph, we want you to forgive us for what we did to you. And that's when Joseph remembers.
Hey,
He remembers when he was a little boy.
okay, could you get the... Okay,
Well, this is the story of the pit where they're going to throw him in.
you get the trolls...
Okay, they're going to grab Joseph, okay?
Okay, Papa.
When Joseph went... I'm going to tell the story. When
Let's start it over.
Okay.
Let's start the story
Okay,
over.
we'll start the story over. When Joseph was a little boy, he went on an errand for his father, and he went to see his brothers.
And then he gave
And his
him
brothers,
food.
he gave him food, but his brothers got mad at him. They were jealous of him because he was a very special boy. And they took him. They took him. And now you can see the hole. They took him and they threw him into a pit. Throw him into the pit. Throw him in. Throw him in. Not the troll. Not the troll. Throw Joseph into the pit. Throw Joseph into the pit. Missed. Throw him in. They're throwing. They were so mean to him, and they threw him in the pit. And then they sat around and talked. They said, "What do we do with him? Let's hurt him." And Joseph was scared. He was in that hole all by himself. He was scared, and he heard his brothers talking. What are they going to do with him? And they were going to hurt him. And then one of the brothers said, "Look, on the horizon." And they saw a bunch of camels. And they were Midianites. And the Midianites were slave traders. They were really mean people doing bad things. And so these brothers sold Joseph for money
Okay,
to the slave traders. So they brought him out of the pit. Bring him out of the pit. So
I'm gonna fix it.
This is going to be the Midianite slave traders, a bounty hunter like Boba Fett. And the bounty hunter came and they took Joseph out of the pit, take him out of the pit. They took Joseph out of the pit. They took him out of the pit, and he was very scared, and he felt very much alone. His own brothers, who were supposed to love him, had hurt him. And they took him. And the bounty hunter slave traders took Joseph all the way to Egypt. And that's where Joseph got a new start, even though it was a really hard start. And he worked his way up to the top of the Egyptian government. And that's where we meet Joseph today. Joseph is like almost like a king. He's almost like the Pharaoh. And so when the brothers, hey, bring the trolls up here. When the brothers asked for forgiveness, they were asking for a lot of forgiveness. Sit down. So Joseph thought about it, and he thought about all the things he had suffered and how these guys, the ones right in front of him, his own brothers, had done this to him. And you know what Joseph said? He said, you know, what you did to me was evil, and what you did...
These brothers didn't throw him in the
Yeah,
pit.
not all the brothers did it, but they were all in on it. And
But he has a dog.
Yeah, the dog didn't even help either. He says, don't be afraid. What you did was part of God's plan. He said, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. And Joseph started to weep. He started to cry. See him crying a little bit? He started to cry. And he forgave his brothers. And they all hugged.
And then
They all hugged.
And then the trolls
Yeah,
were
they all
sleepwalking.
Okay, you have to sit down so they can see
And
you.
then two of them fall into the pit.
Yeah, the trolls went their way. And they forgave him. And the story of Joseph is a lot like what Jesus said in the gospel lesson today. That if you forgive other people, God will forgive you. But if you don't forgive people, God won't forgive you. So Joseph knew that if he wanted to be free and happy again, he had to forgive his brothers, even though it was really hard. So being a Christian means that we learn how to forgive people, even when it's hard. Even when there's a lot of tears and a lot of bad memories. We work really hard at forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is like a train. And you get on the train, and the train moves really slowly. And it feels like you'll never be able to forgive. But the train keeps moving, and eventually you get to forgiveness. It takes a really long time, though. And that's why Jesus taught
And the
us
trolls
to forgive each other.
And the
Just like
trolls-
God forgave us. Because Joseph knew that
and
God...
the other brothers were never.
Sit down so I
They're
can see you.
stuck in the pit.
Yeah. Because Jesus said that we're supposed to forgive other people like God forgives us. And Joseph knew that God had forgiven him. So he forgave his brothers.
Papa, there's one that has a hole
They're
in
stuck
it.
in there.
There's
So
one
remember that.
has a hole in it. They throwed him into a hole, and there was lions inside it.
Oh, that's the story of Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den. Maybe if we get some lions, we can... Maybe Daniel in the troll's den. We could do that story. All right, so I'm Father David, and this is Hieronymus, my son. And we want to say goodbye from Lego Chapel. Say bye.
Bye.